I'd like to welcome you to the Board of Trustees, School District 2. This is a continuation of a special board meeting that began on March 17th. I would like to welcome you and ask you to join us rising for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'm going to do a roll call vote of the trustees, so if you just respond that you are present, I would appreciate that. Joe Raffiani.
Present.
Dana Hafer.
Present.
Jen Hoffman.
Present.
Russ Hall.
Present.
Brian Yates.
Present.
Tanya Ludwig.
Present.
Scott McCullough.
Present.
Is Mike Leo on yet? All right, and the chair, Greta Bashmoen, is present. I would, again, like to thank Brandon for getting these virtual meetings up and going. It's a lot of work, and I appreciate all the time and the effort that you've put into it. I appreciate the board taking time out of their busy lives as they are also navigating a lot of changes during this time, as well as our superintendent. Our administration has done a really phenomenal job, and we'll hear from them later today. The staff has been working diligently. If you drive around at all past any of the schools, you see that there are cars in the parking lot with the teachers working feverishly to help our students stay abreast with their education. And again, I would thank our attorneys, Jeff Weldon and his crew, for the work that they're doing in helping us navigate through this challenging process. So today we'll start with the superintendent's report. So I'll give that over to Greg Upham. He's going to be having the executive directors present updates from their specific areas. And if the executive directors would identify themselves as well as their area, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good evening, everyone. I reiterate the comments by Madam Chair. Want to openly thank you from the bottom of my heart, the efforts that have gone into the work that's occurring all the way from the classroom through Lincoln Center, through the community. It's just been very, very humbling, actually. I think you'll be very interested in tonight's meeting at the amount of work that's done and the way that a culture is taking off. But to begin with, I was presented with information today that sometimes the most obvious is the most difficult to see. But information was shared with me today from our executive directors that as I checked in and said, you know, what's going on? What's new? And they said, well, the students are emailing the teachers saying they miss their friends and they miss their teachers. And some of the teachers are communicating with parents and consoling parents. And it's a reminder for all of us that we are in the people business. And as hard as we work to make sure that everyone has Chromebooks and everyone has instruction and everyone has the appropriate materials, that we can't forget the emotional component of the job that we do. And what an excellent reminder for us that our youngest are telling us that they're missing each other and that they're missing their teachers. So I think we need to keep that on the forefront, that we are a people business, and the culture of caring for people and the emotional attachments and the emotional guidance that we give our young people should never be taken for granted. It really warmed my heart to hear that. What I want to go through is a couple of informational pieces for parents who are watching. Please make sure you are emailing your schools so that connection piece is there. We are reaching out through email. If not, you can call your schools and connect. I think our principals are feeling very, very good, and you'll hear that tonight, that we are communicating with almost everyone. I'm sure we still have some out there, but I feel very, very good as a superintendent that the directive that I gave from my office was that we will offer education through these at least 2 weeks and further if we need to, and we'll offer it in an equitable format. And that is the challenge that's in front of us. We want to make sure that all of our students are receiving an equitable education, and there will be additional work and added work to ensure that, but no one's afraid of it, and we are attacking that. We did put together from the last time, I want to compliment Miss Brenda Koch, one of our executive directors, for taking lead on the frequently asked questions. They are on our website. We are answering those questions, and I think they're extremely helpful. So for the public, please feel free to look at billingschools.org, and you'll see our frequently asked questions. As far as the levy is concerned, I will be going on Facebook Live starting tomorrow at 12:30 and plan on going on daily throughout the process of the levy to discuss issues, components, answer questions for a period of time. Was one of my concerns was not being able to get out there in a personal format, but not being from the digital generation. I'm getting quickly up to speed that I can communicate without people in the room. I don't know if I like it, but I will be going on live, so I've been practicing my big words for that. You should have received a note from me in my newsletter today on the SD2 blood drive. We're partnering with St. Vincent's and the Billings Clinic to offer a blood drive for, we are critically low in our community, and we need to ensure that we have the appropriate blood supply for safety for everyone. I don't want to take a lot of time tonight because it's dedicated specifically to our executive directors and the work that they're doing. And I'm sure there are questions from our trustees as to maybe if this is being met or that's being met or what challenges that we have in place. The first person that I'd like to bring on, and I didn't see him, but maybe he came on, is Sid Taylor with the food service. Sid, are you on with us? Okay, maybe he ran into.
Yes, I'm here, Greg.
Do you want to brief us on the food, please?
Sure, certainly. So we have, during this week, we have been actually adding sites as we see needs and everywhere we can to do that, working through all of the hoops that we have to go through as far as getting the site approved by the USDA. So currently what we are doing is we started with 3 of our sites, which is Castle Rock Middle School, Lewis and Clark Middle School, and Riverside Middle School. We've added Medicine Crow as a site, and then starting on Monday, we are going to be adding Bench Elementary, and then the Bear Family Clubhouse, which is the Boys and Girls Club on Orchard, is going to be an open site as well. Then we also have our mobile food trailer, which is going to be out and about in the community. And we have several stops that we do with that a day. We're currently servicing McKinley, Ponderosa, Orchard, Washington, Newman, and just recently Big Sky Elementary with meal service for families. So a little bit about the times that we are there. We're offering these meals curbside right in front of the school where the bus turnout is. So we are serving breakfast from 7:45 to 9 o'clock in the morning, and then again at 11 o'clock in the afternoon till 12:30. So and any family members can pull up in their car with the kids in the car. The students have to be present, and then they can pick up 2 meals. They can pick up a breakfast and a lunch, or a lunch and a breakfast for the next day. So they only need to make one trip actually to these sites a day to pick up these meals. The other thing is that all students 18 and under eat for free. There's no charge for any of these meals for any of these sites that you go to. And then on Fridays, we have coordinated with Jenny Mermel, who is the backpack meal coordinator for the area. And so tomorrow on Fridays, we're going to be offering the backpack meals for families who need this to get them through the weekend. And then finally, we are also working on adding a potential delivery to some homes, because we have heard throughout the community there's several people who are not able to get to our sites. So we are actually going to be adding that service. We're just trying to figure out the logistics on how we can make that happen. And then the other thing that we're adding is we're going to be looking at adding hot meals as well for the next couple of weeks. We've started doing some soup with sandwiches, but in this weather, it's nice to be able to have a hot option for all these kids as well. So current numbers, today we've served about 580 breakfasts and about 1,100 lunches. And we're up, we've been climbing each day as we've been offering the service. And so we are up about 360 meals from what we did on yesterday. So we continue to see the need. And I believe as this continues to stretch out, if it does, hopefully not, but we will continue, I believe, continue to see this need rise. The final note is we've been overwhelmed with responses from the community. Businesses in the community, people in the community have all been coming forward offering to volunteer to help get these meals out to these families. So it's really heartwarming and grateful to see the people just come together in times of need. So really appreciate that. And I can't leave without saying a huge how proud I am of my staff for the ones that are actually standing out there in the snow passing out meals. So I have to say I'm very touched, and all of my staff has really stepped up and my managers have stepped up to really provide this service without even asking anything, just going out there and doing it. So very proud of them, very proud of all of the principals as well who have also been out helping us pass out meals. So really appreciate it. And then again, I'm going to be posting any updates on the website. I pretty much post that every time we add a new site or anything under the tab, the COVID-19 updates. And so if family members or parents or anybody in the district wants to check that website, they can do that, and they will see all of the updates as we make them daily. And any questions, our office phone number is on the sheet that lists all of the sites as well. So please feel free to call our office if you have any questions at all, and we'll be happy to get you an answer. Or if you're a family in need that needs to get meal service, give us a call and we can try to work that out for you. So that's what I have.
Are there any questions of the board members?
Greta, Jana here. Wow. Sid, very impressive. Thank you for all you and your staff and all your volunteers are doing for our kids.
Oh, thank you, Jen.
Anyone else? Thank you, Sid. I echo Jana's comments as well. Thank you for serving our community. We appreciate it.
Oh, thank you.
Greg?
Yep, thank you, Madam Chair. So the next person that I've asked to speak is Mr. Scott Ryder on our facilities. Our facility people were in the very next day, and Scott's leadership started Sunday night, and just outstanding leadership. And so, Scott, you want to brief us on facilities?
Sure. As Greg said, we brought in all the head custodians on Monday to make our plan for the next 2 weeks. And on Tuesday, all custodians came in and began cleaning in the schools and disinfecting. And we also brought in the facilities staff, and they continued with their repairs. They've been going through the schools. There's a couple schools with some absences in yet. They're a little behind the other ones, but we'll bring them from the other schools next week. We had a variety of different methods they're going through, but a couple of them that I thought was really kind of nice, like senior high, for example. Their crew is going in and cleaning the room first, and then they go through and disinfect all the surfaces, desks, chairs, scrub, tables, everything, walls. Then they go through and wash the disinfectant off, and then they go through another time with the EvaClean dispenser. It's that fogger that has the ionizing fog that wraps around all the surfaces and disinfect the room. Then they put a sign on the door stating when it was cleaned and finished and who did it, and they move on to the next room. So if any staff happens to come in to grab products or whatnot, they just quickly go back through with the EvaClean fogger and disinfect the room again. So they've been working pretty hard. They're probably about halfway through as a whole with the schools, getting through that first pass of disinfecting and cleaning everything. Some of our staff, the warehouse has been out making deliveries, picking up mail runs, and delivering backpack material to the schools. They've all been going really good, and it's pretty impressive. They're all real dedicated, and they're just digging right in and going to work.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Jen.
So why not just the ionizer? Doesn't it seem like a bit of overkill if that ionizer wraps 360 around everything?
The surfaces still need to be cleaned and before you disinfect, and it's just an added insurance benefit. It does do a great job of disinfecting, but this is just an added benefit. They need to be cleaned. Not very often do we get an opportunity where there's 2 weeks with not much going on in the schools that they can get to all these areas that typically don't get hit till summer. Some of these, they just don't have the time with their daily routine to get to some of these areas. This is a great opportunity to take advantage of that and hit those areas and clean it all up.
Are there other questions or comments of Scott? Scott, I hope that you can share with your staff our deep gratitude. They're on the front line and they're out there protecting our kids and our staff. So please pass on our much appreciated thanks to them.
Greta, ditto from me. I just, Scott, wow, that's very impressive. Thank you for doing that.
Okay, Greg, next.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I'd like to invite Jay Lemlin to share information on adult ed and community ed.
Just trying to unmute. Can you hear me? All right, thanks. So yeah, we're providing learning opportunities for our students. Teachers first emailed, did Google Voice and Remind to start conversations with their individual students. And then recently we started a pilot program with Apex Learning, and we reached out to them to tell them we were going to need more licenses for some online learning, and they agreed to allow us to increase the number of licenses that we have, and they're not doing that for any profit. There's a minimal fee that we're having to pay. We have Burlington English for our ESL learners that also has other lessons, but my individual teachers are coming into the Lincoln Center and putting together packets for any students that don't have internet access, and teachers have updated their individual classroom websites. They're letting students know that they can text or email the teacher if they need a username or a password. And then teachers are also having students Skype or FaceTime as needed. We have individual websites where teachers have links that students can access for learning, and then individual lessons. Math teachers, if they know that a student is at a certain point in needing to do a certain task, they've got videos of specific lessons that they've done that they allow students to do. For community education, we've emailed all of our instructors and the students, and they're working together depending upon if they're already online classes, they're just continuing as normal. And if they're not, then it's up to the instructor to decide how they're going to continue. If it's a pottery class and they need space and they're halfway through, we'll work with those instructors to make space available when they're available, and then with the students to continue as needed. And if they're not able to, we'll work on refunding their money. As much as I'm a routine person and love routines, this takes us away from that, but it's given me an opportunity to just see how invested my teachers are with the people that they're working with. Greg, you're right. This is people business, and I'm proud of my staff for stepping up and taking this on and just showing me that they're advocating for their students.
Thanks, Jay. Questions from the board?
Greta, I have a question for Jay. How are we reaching those that do not have access? Is there, we have a challenge there?
We have their phone numbers, and teachers are either using an app to text them and asking them when they can come in, and then teachers are coming into the Lincoln Center and doing folders for those individual students, and then they're calling my office and setting up a time with me to come in, and I give them their folder to work on their paper products.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any others? thanks, Jay, to you and to your staff for reaching out to the non-traditional learner. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Greg?
Yeah, Madam Chair, I wanted to have Brandon Newfer talk about the framework, the IT framework. And I think I shared with him today, not to take any of his thunder, but we have over 1,700 tablets in process at this time, and Brandon's team have just done an outstanding job, as everyone has. But we're working off of a platform and a framework that's quite interesting. So, Mr. Newfer.
Good evening, Madam Chair and trustees from the technology department. My awesome staff have been out at schools, assisting with getting inventories ready and helping with signing equipment out to students for home use. In addition, the rest of my staff remotely have been getting things set up in the background to make this all work. We've made changes and done things in the last 2 days that we normally probably would take all summer to do. So it's just been great that we've been able to make the changes and do the things we've done so quickly. As Greg said, we processed about 1,700 Chromebooks and iPads to go out to the families, and that number continues to rise. I would have to guess, I'd say that's probably going to double at least by the time we're finished. Families need a device for home use. We ask that the parents contact their home school and make arrangements for pickups. And then for technology support on issues such as student password resets and software app issues, we've set up a help desk email account, which is help@billingstudents.org, that families can utilize. That's the preferred way. Or if they have an emergency issue, we do have a help desk line at 281-5151 during business hours that they can call. I have to say that teamwork between tech integration specialists, interventionists, literacy coaches, teachers, curriculum, my entire team, and basically all of SD2 staff has just been amazing over the last few days.
Questions or comments of Brandon?
I don't want to hog the microphone, but it's just so impressive what everyone is doing. So I just don't want to miss a chance to thank them.
You can hog the microphone as often as you want to thank them for all their work. And I don't know how much you all are sleeping in IT, but it's a huge undertaking, and appreciate all of the work and the dedication that your staff brings to school district 2 and for our students and faculty. Thank you. Back to you, Greg.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, Sunday night, or all day Sunday, I'd been communicating with the 2 executive directors that oversee the East and West cohort, Brenda Koch and Dave Cobb. We had discussed the framework. I keep using the term framework, but it is an actual framework, and discussed calling for the meeting on Monday morning at 10 a.m. to bring all executive directors together to start to lay the plans out and to also ask questions about what was needed. I think we came to the conclusion right away that the people who knew the most of what we wanted to accomplish were the classroom teachers. We wanted to empower the classroom teacher and then step back and work to support the classroom teacher, because the classroom teacher had all of the answers to everything we were asking ourselves. What do the students need? Where are they? Do they have access to technology? Do they not have access to technology? Where are our homeless students? What do they need? All of those questions, we came to the conclusion to say, all right, we are going to offer an education framework, and now we just need to ask our people what they need, and as they need it, give that to them. So I want Brenda and Dave to kind of go over what the plans have been from the building, and Brenda will speak to our counseling department and the counseling services that we have. So Dave or Brenda, whichever one wants to go first.
Thanks, Greg. As Greg mentioned, just a huge challenge to begin with. But I concur with Greg, and what's been mentioned is our staff has done an amazing job. You know, one of our biggest challenges is the communication piece. That was a concern for us. The perfect storm. I'm proud to say that our secretaries in all of our schools have been working in Power School to try and obtain parent emails, simply because we're going to a new platform, and we had done some front end work for the past 2 months. So with this crisis that has occurred, we were much more prepared. We didn't have all parent emails, but we were much farther along than we were 2 months ago. That's our biggest challenge, or that was our biggest concern, is communicating with parents. Every student has an email account. Not every parent had. So I'm happy to say that from the administrative standpoint is that our principals have been very happy with the communication from parents regarding the email. We're emailing parents and students using email. Also, I've heard from a few principals that even in some of our largest high schools in Montana, some of our teachers have been able to have a verbal conversation with a parent or their students, and that's quite remarkable. That's a feat in itself. Again, we've encouraged parents through our website that if they have not heard from a teacher or a school, to contact the school immediately. And I'm happy to say that we've only had a handful of parents that have not been able to receive an email. That could be for a number of reasons. Students as well. I think sometimes students forget they have an email account, and so we've encouraged every student through our communication to check their school email account first prior to calling the school if they have not heard from their teachers. But considering we're the largest district in the state of Montana, I can tell you that every one of our building level administrators are not getting a lot of feedback in regard to lack of communication on that side of it. As Greg and Brandon mentioned, 1,700 items of technology have been checked out, quite a feat in itself. But we're happy to say that everybody has jumped in at all of our schools, helping administrators check out those electronic devices. We've also, every school has set up a calendar to allow parents to come to the building based on, their last name, alphabet, to either get, maybe a music instrument, another piece of technology. A student may need a textbook or textbooks, or another piece of technology to use for a math class or a science class. So it's been great organization and communication from the school to the parent and the student on that part.
Thanks, Dave. Brenda, would you follow up with what you're seeing with your building principals, both the same, and then touch on our counselors, please?
Absolutely. Thank you so much. It's been heartwarming, humbling, as Superintendent Upham said earlier, to see what is happening in the buildings, remotely, what the teachers are doing, how they're pulling together, how they're supporting each other and providing assistance for students. We've seen pictures of copying stations in workrooms, supplies being available at schools. We have multiple people just pulling together to make sure that students have access to all of the academic materials they need to be successful, that they have access to meals so that they are taken care of, and then just the general checking in on them as well. We have teachers who are doing live videos, YouTube channels, students who are videoing. There was one where for a French class, some students had a assignment to make a French dish, and so they were videoing themselves of making the dish and uploading that to their teacher to see that. So some pretty cool things going on to try to mimic the real life experience that we're missing right now in our classrooms. So I am so proud of our teachers, our administrators, in organizing everything and providing the supports for the staff, and then for the families. We're getting lots of compliments of the flexibility, that our teachers are top notch, and that how much they truly care and love our students is coming through very, very clearly, and that they want learning to continue, that we are resilient. And while this is a setback and not the ideal conditions, we are going to do everything in our power to make sure that all students from all subgroups, from all socioeconomic status, from everything, that all students have access to education. So could not be prouder. And we're also having Google Meets, virtual meetings with our administrators. We had one a few days ago with all the elementary principals, and then one with the middle school and high school principals, and we're having those as needed. And we'll be having another one Monday with the elementary principals, and then actually tomorrow with the middle school principals, just touching base with them. With the counselors, we had a virtual counseling leadership team meeting yesterday that was comprised of K-12 counselors, and we came together, and as you would expect, they're genuinely concerned about their students' well-being. They're developing a plan to make sure that they're able to communicate directly, whether it be email, virtually, and in a format such as this, or on the phone with the students on their regular caseload, and then also with any students who need any additional support. We've developed, I shouldn't say we, they developed a unified safety notice. It has been put on our district website, the frequently asked questions website, and our school websites. If there are any students or families that are needing immediate support during this difficult time. They discussed how to best serve students in multiple ways. Some teachers or some counselors feel comfortable through email. Some are going to go to their office and have isolated office hours and use the school phone. So they're all going to be connecting with their students in a different way, but they're communicating that with their students. They're using the ASCA, the American School Counselor Association guidelines on the virtual counseling standards and what that means for them and how that looks. And that's being communicated to families so that they understand that counselors are accessible during their normal working hours. We are developing a list of mental health resources for parents and students, and we will get that out, and that will be communicated. Chris and Kim are going to be talking about this really cool website that's been designed called the BPS Offsite Learning website, and the counselors will also be accessing that so that all counselors across the district have access to curriculum updates and resources. One of the things that we hadn't considered, and a counselor brought it up yesterday in our meeting, was what if, goodness sakes, I hope it would never happen, but what if we have another major crisis with a student or a family situation during this time when our schools are closed? How would we handle that? So there's a team of counselors who are working on that, coming up with a draft plan. We're going to review that tomorrow so that if something should happen, we hope that that doesn't, but that we're able to mobilize to the best of our ability in a very unique setting. So our specialists and counselors are doing an amazing job of contacting, making sure that they're able to provide coping strategies and emotional supports for our students. So this is difficult for our students, for many students with the changes, and they're reaching out to them and making sure that they're safe. Any questions?
Any questions of Brenda or Dave?
I have a question for Brenda.
Sure.
Maybe Superintendent Upham. What, if anything, has been put in place for students who have IEPs and 504 plans?
I believe we have, is Judy Povolitis going to visit about that, Mr. Upham?
Yes, Judy Povolitis will be speaking to our SPED and 504 situations coming up later.
Perfect.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments of Dave or Brenda?
Just had comments.
Go ahead, Brian.
I've got a first, a third grader, and a sixth grader, and it was very eye-opening this afternoon. I picked up my packets from Big Sky Elementary for the first and the third, then still had everything online for my sixth grader, and just one person standing in a house trying to direct three different kids. Wow, yeah, that's an eye-opener. All working on different things, but what was really great is the amount of information that they put together. It really actually felt like I was running a classroom for a moment. Granted, there were only 3 instead of 20 plus children. But it was interesting. And so it was really nice to have all that information. It seemed like it got together quick. And especially on the technology side, I had never gone through what a middle school and up student can log in and have access to. And that was impressive. So, I mean, everyone involved in that, thank you. It's a lot of great work. And I actually really didn't feel like we missed a school day today at home. So poor kids probably missed their teachers, but they were stuck with me. So
did you assign any detention?
No, but there were some, we got close. There were some warnings. And we did the recess. We did the PE worksheet. So that's fun with 3 different age groups as well, but no detention. There's always tomorrow. It's Friday, right?
That's right.
Friday's the day.
Thanks, Brian. Anyone else? And I don't know if our community knows that we have between 1,200 and 1,300 teachers. And so the way that you and Dave have coordinated with them, communicated with them, you're the glue for our administrative staff and our teaching staff, and we appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Just something real quick, Freda.
Go ahead, Russ.
Yeah, just, as a parent as well, and as a board member, I wasn't sure what exactly was going to happen with homework and with reaching out. And I was impressed that we heard directly from the teachers first before we heard from any administration. And that's exactly how it should be. So kudos to a great plan and then implementation of that plan. I think the school district and the teachers specifically have done a great job.
Well, and I'd just like to reiterate what Superintendent Upham said, is we really wanted that to be the ability and the decision-making within the schools, because they could mobilize quickly and they knew how to reach their families easiest and in the most quickly and efficient manner. And so, again, we just can't be prouder of the work that's happening in all the schools and with the families and the way they're responding to this.
Thank you. Anyone else? Superintendent Upham, back to you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. At this time, I'd like to introduce Kim Anthony, who oversees our K-8 curriculum. They have just been working their tails off to make sure that the curriculum is there. And then the creativity, I think Kim will share with you. So Kim has done an outstanding job of getting the materials and her team in place. So Kim.
So thank you, Madam Chair and Chair and board members. I have to say our classroom teachers and administrators, I knew how fantastic they were, but I think this has taken us to a new level, and I hope they know how much we truly, truly appreciate them. They very diligently have put out amazing assignments, either digitally or through worksheets, so kids can continue using the curriculum. So the curriculum coaches, as well as the technology integration specialists, have been working hard to put resources together for our classroom teachers. And so the technology integration specialists actually built a website that's called Offsite Learning, that's on our curriculum page, on our Quick Links page, where they're putting in tutorials on how to use Google Classrooms for classroom teachers who have never used it, how to use Seesaw. So just all kinds of materials that our teachers can access. We have folders for librarians, for health enhancement teachers, for every elective K through 8. We have lots of creative teachers. Our Quest teachers, because we didn't want those kiddos to go unchallenged through this, are putting together critical thinking activities that are being posted. They're having office hours so the kids can actually log on through Google Classroom to meet with them, to talk through some critical thinking aspects. Our librarians have gone into the schools and gotten barcodes for all of the kids and have emailed them on how to check out books electronically through our Sora system. Several of the librarians still had money in their budgets, and so we actually just did a $6,000 order for additional electronic books for kids to check out, as well as the company gave us some free ones so kids could have access to digital library books throughout this. Several of our librarians are videoing them doing read alouds. And so one of the librarians actually read aloud a book to the kindergarten students today and then asked questions that they did virtually. Our EL coaches, our English learner coaches, have actually been going to places of business because a lot of the families don't speak English. And so when our teachers are trying to reach out to them, they don't often understand. And so they've been going to different businesses, picking up the iPads, downloading materials, putting things into their native language. So anything that schools have sent home, they've been doing translations and then giving it to the parents. They put together packets, not only for our EL learners within the school system, but also preschool packets that younger siblings can be doing from home. Lots of offsite learning. Our reading interventionists have put together packets of curricular materials for those kiddos that might be struggling in reading or math. Read 180 is now available at home, as well as we have done packets for those kiddos to continue on that trajectory of learning. Our music and art teachers have put together some of the most amazing lesson plans digitally that I've ever seen. I have heard from a few parents about how the recorders should have been left at school and not been allowed to come home because lots of parents are tired of hearing the same recorder song over and over and over again. But what great practice for our kids. Our health enhancement teachers have done an amazing job of putting together fitness bingos, YouTube videos of themselves doing an activity where the kiddos can log in and actually do the activity with their teachers. Our empowered teachers, which is our family consumer science, are having the kids actually cook foods, video it, send it in, do the laundry for their parents, which is one of our standards for family consumer science. I can't tell you how much that the teachers have rallied around this. It is absolutely amazing.
Thank you, Kim. All of the things that you described, it's hard to believe it's only been 4 days.
Absolutely.
Questions or comments of Kim, Anthony? Looks like you answered all the questions. Thanks.
Thank
all right,
you.
Superintendent Upham, back to you.
Thank you. Yes, and following suit with the curriculum, and very fortuitous that we passed the high school levy. Again, thank you, public watching, to update our instructional materials to be online. And so I know Dr. Oshesky has been busy with that piece, but Chris, maybe bring us up to speed on the high school curriculum side of the story.
Thank you, Superintendent Upham, members of the board. So yeah, as far as what Brenda and Dave mentioned, as far as the rollout of this, and I'll just repeat a little bit of what they said in the sense of what our main priority was is access and trying to make sure that we have a good understanding on how much of student access that we have out there. So they prioritized obviously contacting students through their emails, their school emails, to try to find out if they can get responses. And then the high schools individually, each building had a different rollout plan, very similar based upon what was sent out from administration on Monday. And our big issue is trying to identify students who either needed the Chromebook, or if they don't have any Wi-Fi at home, making sure we get a hard copy textbook into their hands and resources. So I know as teachers have been working on not only setting up anything that they have available for online resources for their students, and many of our teachers had those set up, especially if they were utilizing some of our most recent adopted materials. As you guys know, in the last 2 years, we have been able to begin adoptions of updated resources that included online resources. And so high schools, I would say there are certain departments that are a little bit behind in that. And so we've been really working with the companies that have come forward, and actually give you an example. One of the companies that we adopted from our English from, Bedford Freeman Worth, they actually contacted us, and they're doing this across the country. They are saying our teachers can sign up for 90-day free access to any of their e-textbooks, even ones we haven't adopted. So getting that out to those courses that that have the old book still, you know, we haven't got to them in the adoption cycle. They're either up for review adoption this year or next year. These companies being able to step forward and tell us, hey, we're opening up these resources for free for the next 60 to 90 days to your teachers. That's really going to support and help those courses that have a book that's 10 years old and, you know, no online resources. So again, those types of things are really, really grateful for. Also our librarians and Brandon and Kim both mentioned the technology integration specialists. They've been outstanding. You know, really looking at pulling things together. We have a very similar landing page in the quick links that K-8 did. We have one for high school. It's not as robust yet because we're still building it out. And it's linking back to what the high schools have been building, which are spreadsheets, to the individual teacher Google classrooms and making sure that students have access to those. And then if students do have access either through a device that they already have, or if they've checked out a Chromebook, then really making sure that we have all the information available, including Clever. It's our single sign-on that you've probably heard about Brandon talk about over this last year, making sure the students and the teachers know where to go. So there's Google Slideshow, so it gives instructions on reminders on how teachers and students can get up and running on that if they need help, but also really supporting additional supports from the companies themselves that have reached out and said, here's how teachers and students can actually contact our team that's ready to go during this time, so that you know, as Brandon's team has the help desk ready to go as well. You know, if their team gets bogged down, then we can turn around and say, okay, yes, that you can also contact Pearson, or you could contact McGraw-Hill, Glencoe. A couple of our departments that typically don't have a textbook or typically aren't textbook based. You know, you think about career tech and the shop and the culinary and mechanics. You know, when you start looking at some of these particular courses, it's been kind of a challenge for them as they are wondering, how do they create an online presence? So I want to put a shout out to Bo and our 4 career coaches. They've been getting together the last couple of days and really identifying, and they put this on our high school side of the launch site. How can our career areas, our CTE areas that normally would be engaged in the labs and in the shops, what can they be doing to emphasize career exploration and career cruising right now? So we have all of those resources in career cruising that now are very relevant and available to our students. And so they've developed, and if you go on there and click on the link, you can see all of the activities they pulled out of career cruising, and beginning to identify things that students can go in and really say, hey, this is look at what this crisis is doing to our economy, into many of these careers. So not only researching careers that they're interested in career cruising, but also putting things out like, okay, let's take a look at how the different types of careers are impacted by this, and let's talk about it. They've also put out OSHA training material. So there are a lot of things out there available. They're looking for those virtual types of activities that we talk about, maybe some of the virtual reality stuff that's out there. So just being able to get together and pull those resources into one place and start building that out. Again, you know, the counselors are working on their shared sites as well. But those are the types of things that we're ready to go. And as the high schools are gearing up, they're reaching out to me now. A lot of departments have reached out and said, you know, we have a certain number of families that have already told us they don't have internet, so they can't even check out a Chromebook. Can we get more textbooks, you know, besides what we already had in the building with our classroom sets? And so we're working with Warehouse to get those to the buildings, quick checkout to parents and students so that students can be able to use the print resources and have some equity across the board. So again, compliments to Brandon's team and our tech and integration specialists.
Thanks, Chris. Are there questions or comments for Chris? Looks like we got easy night. Oh, is that Brian?
Yeah, that's me.
Go ahead.
Clicking on the wrong button again. I just wanted to add just a comment. You know, as we kind of go through and we listen, and we've recognized a lot of the work that's been done in such a short time, and how fast different departments and executive directors and technology, and how fast all this stuff has come up and been put in place. You know, I think just as a community, realizing that when you think about community members, when you think about what you do in your profession day in and day out, and now imagine a world where you can't go do what you normally do. You have to set it up and structure it in a way that somebody who has not done what you do can work with what it is you work with. So simply, my point is as a community, imagining what it's like for teachers these last 4 days, and educators and administrators and everyone in the system, to not do what they do day in and day out, and that is run a school, teach their curriculum, follow their lesson plans, do the things they've done for years. They've had to, in a short amount of time, figure out how to have these things and the same education opportunities available to 17,000 students. That's a lot of work in 4 days. That's a lot of work on every level. And so I really hope that community members watching, listening in, recognize this has been a action-packed, strategy-packed, and there's been a lot that's gone into the last 4 days. So that's my point.
I'm glad you found your volume button. Anyone else? Thanks, Chris. Greg?
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, a lot of questions people have been asking is, what about testing? What's going to happen with the ACT? What's going to happen with AP? What's going to happen with dual credits? That's a moving target. And Roger has kept up to speed on all the assessment and testing that we have and that we're experiencing. And Roger, maybe speak to the testing, please.
Sure thing. Thanks, Greg. Like you mentioned, it is kind of a moving target. We were originally scheduled to have the ACT this coming Tuesday, and with the closure that got postponed. Right now it's tentatively scheduled for the third option in our testing window, which is April 21st. So we're moving forward, assuming that we'll be back in session and we'll be testing that day. There is also a possibility of even a later date in May, but that's getting worked out with ACT right now to see if that's an option. So more to come as the OPI works through those conversations. Regarding AP testing, so that's mostly for our sophomores, juniors, and seniors. Right now, we're waiting on some more guidance that's supposed to be released tomorrow. And they're looking at delaying exams back later into May, making some later testing dates as a district, so we can get a variance with them, as well as also the possibility of having an at-home testing option. So again, more guidance will come out from the College Board tomorrow regarding that. In reference to our other standardized testing that's required by the state and federal levels, the OPI is working with the vendors to extend those windows. Right now, they're pretty large windows, but they should have wrapped up about the first week of May or second week of May. So they're talking with the vendors to see if those can get extended 2 additional weeks. So through basically the end of May. So we have more time to complete those exams. And I know that the Department of Ed has granted some flexibility with meeting testing participation requirements this year. And there's also been some talk with that OPI maybe looking at getting a waiver to not require testing. So a lot of things developing. We'll probably know more in the next day or week or two.
Thank you. Are there questions of Roger? I appreciate the update. Keep us informed. It's a moving target. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Greg?
Thank you, Madam Chair. An area in Monday's meeting that was discussed extensively was making sure that we could equitably educate our students. And that's been one of the biggest hurdles, but we surely didn't want inequity in our instruction with our students, either whether that's in the classroom, in the school, or across the district. And so we are working feverishly to make sure that all students are receiving education specific to their level and specific to their resources. And I can't compliment our people enough. I think you're listening to that, but we asked Judy Povolitis, Administrator for Special Ed, to speak specifically to Special Ed 504 situations. And then Judy, please touch on our nurses. Thank you.
Okay, great. First, I'm just so overwhelmed at how quickly this district was able to mobilize. As I've been in contact with other special education directors around the state and around the nation, we really jumped on it very quickly and had things in place and we're ready to roll. So I'm just very proud of our district and the people who support us. Our staff of over 350 teachers, related service providers, and support staff have really rallied. Instruction for students with disabilities is quite different than regular classroom instruction. We've been collaborating with those regular ed teachers as well as our parents on how to provide those specialized services for our students. One of the first areas that we needed to address were our students who are on medications and had medications at school. So we immediately rallied our nurses who set up schedules to get medications back to parents. They are in constant contact with many of the parents, ensuring that medications are being given on time, that there aren't any issues going on at home as the students are receiving education at home. So thank you to my nursing staff who have been extremely helpful in providing guidance with parents on maintaining routines and making sure that the students' health is their primary concern. Additionally, we've put together a procedure guide, and as I'm watching some of the comments coming through on the Facebook live feed, a lot of on the IEPs, instruction for trying to have parents do gen ed instruction is very difficult. Imagine trying now to do specialized instruction. Teachers and support staff, as well as our related service providers, are actually on the phone. They're doing FaceTiming with parents, walking them through how to provide those services. They're giving them ideas on how to collect data. So as a student is working on a specific skill, they're teaching parents how to take data on that so that we're ensuring that they're making progress. As we get, we're also providing for resources, students who are hearing impaired, students who have visual impairments. There is a resource guide that will be posted, I believe, tomorrow on how those gen ed populations can be then closed captioned, how we can provide services for those students who are visually impaired if they don't have those devices at home where they can see. So we're providing a lot of instruction on that. Our occupational therapists and our physical therapists, again, are on the phone. They're working via email with parents on activities that they can do. If I can stress anything for our students with disabilities, is it's absolutely critical that we're keeping routines in place. Students getting up on time in the morning, getting dressed, getting ready like they're preparing for school, having a place set aside for them, minimizing some distractions for them. And that routine of being in school and that learning environment is just critical for students with disabilities. So thank you, parents, for providing that. And thank you, staff, for reaching out to parents and making yourself accessible for them. As we move forward in this situation that we're in, as we look toward IEPs that are due, we are in the middle of testing several students, many students that we are currently identifying in need of special education. And the guidance that we're getting at this point is we have rescheduled IEPs for next week. If we're out any longer than that, the case manager will be reaching out to those families, and we will be doing IEPs, reevaluation meetings virtually. So we will invite staff to log on. Parents will have the opportunity to log on. If the parents need some equipment in order to do that, or they can phone in, we will provide that. We do making sure we have our IEP team together. The IEP will be sent home so that the parent can view it beforehand, just like we always do. We try to get it out in a 48-hour draft notice so that you will have plenty of time to review it. But we will be starting conducting IEPs, not next week, but the following week, via phone and or through the virtual facilities that are available. For students who are currently in the testing process of that, we've reached out to OPI if in fact we can do minimal face-to-face. As we're evaluating students, observation is very critical, as well as we do have testing that has to be done, and those are things that cannot be done virtually. So we're looking for a little bit of guidance on what that would look like as we move forward. We are at this point trying to adhere to the federal guidelines for getting IEPs and evaluations completed in a timely manner, and we're trying to make arrangements as best as possible for them. So it's going to look a little bit different. I truly empathize that it's very difficult to have some information provided over Skyping and virtually. You don't get that personal interaction. It's very hard to ask questions, but we will make every effort to make this as seamless and painless for parents as we start the process. We have been doing, as we look at our 3 to 5 year old population, our 3-year-olds have to be identified by their 3rd birthday and things into place. We have been conducting many of those transition meetings virtually. That seems to be working very well at this point. Amy at our Rimrock Learning Center and her staff have been in every day planning. They're putting packets together. The aides have come in and helped cut out things so that they can go home to the little 3 and 4 year olds so that they have activities at the home to work on as well. And as we're meeting with parents through the virtual sites, it seems to be working relatively well. So we've had a little trial run on that. That only includes maybe 2 or 3 people as we move into larger IEP team meetings. I'm hoping that the Zoom option will work. If not, Google Hangout will have to work as well. The other is, I'm missing one more here. IEPs, re-evaluations, 3-year evaluations, and then evaluation reports, students who've already been identified and starting that initial IEP. As the parents and staff are all meeting through virtual, forms will be sent home then for parent signature and returned via mail and or scanned back and forth. So that's our plan at this point for serving students with disabilities. Our students on 504s, encouraging staff to remember that there are accommodations that need to be upheld. Many of those are very easily done at home, such as additional time, which I think at this point almost everybody has additional time. So we're just inviting parents to call our staff who are obligated to provide that if they need assistance in adapting or modifying materials, to get a hold of the resource room teacher, the special education teacher, and they will walk them through that and work with them as well. So it's just been a team effort, and I'm so impressed with the rallying that the teams have done to provide specialized services for our students. So, any questions for me?
Any questions for Judy? Jen, did you have a follow-up?
I do not. She answered all of my questions. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? Thank you very much, Judy. You all are doing a wonderful job. Thank you. Greg?
Thank you, Madam Chair. At this time, I'd like to invite Jennifer Smith to share information on our Indian Ed students, our at-risk population, and our homeless students.
Good evening, Madam Chair and trustees. We've been busy as well. A couple different areas I wanted to update you on. Kim had already mentioned our English language programming and our 2 gals that work for that program and the work they're doing with the families. Of course, I'm sure this is a scary time for them, particularly if they're not necessarily proficient with English language. This has got to be a difficult time. So they're heavily involved with curriculum work with Kim, which is fantastic. I also visited with Sue Runkle, who is our liaison for our homeless students, and just got a little bit of information from her. Just a heads up, to date this year, we've had 426 homeless students in our district identified. 333 of those students are currently active in our district. So she's been busy as well. She's been in contact with the parents, been receiving a lot of phone calls from parents, finding out where people are at this time and what their needs are in terms of transportation and food. She's been working with Sodexo to make sure that families have the information about the food sites, delivering packets to some of those families for work, devices. She's even had several new families that have been identified this week because of this crisis. She's been in contact with Ginny Mermel. I know Sid already mentioned the backpack meals, which will go out tomorrow along with the regular meals. Let's see, Head Start, I think, had information on their Facebook page letting parents know that they can certainly come in with their ID and the name of the student who's attending the Head Start in order to be able to get food for those students as well. The Boys and Girls Club staff met on Monday. Sue was there, Family Promise was there. One of the things that they're going to start on Monday is for kids who are already club members, they're going to be offering child care for the children of the first responders and medical personnel. And then also for kids who are already club members, if they are also homeless, they're providing child care services for those children as well, if the family is in an emergency situation. Again, that's just for already existing club members in those circumstances. In regard to Indian education, with my staff, I have 2 Indian Ed for All coaches. One is already out on medical leave. The other is also a half-time interventionist. So she's been involved with the interventionists who are also developing curriculum for their children and their particular needs. I also have 9 home-to-school coordinators who are on site at our schools in the district, assisting our Native students normally. Obviously, that's not possible right now. So another big component of our job all the time anyway is outreach. So this is just sort of an extension of what we already do for us. So those folks are making phone calls, emails, a lot of the same things that you're hearing from the other directors, a lot of phone calls and emails in order to make sure we're making contact with our families, particularly our at-risk families. If we're not able to get a hold of some of the families for which we're concerned about, we're making home visits to knock on the door to make sure that we're making contact with these families, because we have a lot of concerns about food need. We have a lot of families that are not connected to the internet, so we need to make sure we're making contact with them and that they're okay. We're also doing a lot of delivery. My folks were helping assemble packets today, doing a lot of delivering of packets, delivering of devices for our kids that have or can access internet but don't have a means to do that in terms of a device. Some IT help when we hand those things off, because some of our families are not necessarily technologically savvy. But a lot of it also is just us showing up, seeing faces so that they know that we're supporting them, answering a lot of questions. They tend to be a little bit more comfortable, I think, when they see people they know on their doorstep. And then we're also just doing a lot of meal delivery. I put an email out to the admin asking if they had families that, and Sid, this I think speaks to you if you're still on here, Sid Taylor. We offered to do delivery to any families. They don't have to be Native. If there's need for delivery services of some kind, we delivered quite a few meals today. And the Sodexo people were so friendly and so helpful. We really appreciate that. But we're discovering a lot of little ones in homes. So we want to make sure that our families have enough food for everybody there, not just our K through 12s, but we're also making sure we get information for the little ones there who also need the food and the meals. So Sid, whatever you need in terms of delivery assistance, we're extremely accustomed to making home visits. That's part of what we do as our job every week. They've been obviously told to not cross the threshold in order to maintain a safe distance, but we're certainly out there getting in touch with our families, either virtually or even face-to-face. So that's kind of where we're at with Indian education. And again, it's all kids, not just Native. Right now, we're just trying to meet whatever needs are out there.
Thank you, Jen. Questions of Jen?
I have a question again.
Okay, Jennifer.
The Spectrum, I understand, is offering free internet to people right now, and I'm curious if that would be helpful or if anyone has looked into that.
I think Brandon can speak to that. You're going to know more about that than I would, Brandon, but I've heard that as well. Brandon, do you want to talk to that?
Yes, give me 1 second. I'm going to pull that up right now.
Are there other questions of Jennifer while he's researching that? Jennifer, of our 333 active homeless students, where are they staying and how are they being served?
There's a variety of things that are happening here. A large majority of them are in motels. A large majority are doubled up. So they're living in situations where we've got, anywhere between 8 to 15 people in a single dwelling, possibly an apartment or trailer house. So those are also considered homeless, obviously, because they're not the person on the lease. And there's multiple families living in one dwelling. We have a lot of that. We have a lot of people that are moving from place to place because they don't have a stable place. They might be with family at one point, and then they move in with friends because maybe the family, they can't have them there anymore. If there's Section 8 housing, you're really not allowed to bring on additional people to the home. So, if that comes under scrutiny, then whoever the family is staying there has to move on. So we have a lot of that. From the Native perspective in general, I've heard of a lot of families going back to the reservation because they're concerned about long-term shutdown of services. So they're going back towards family, hoping that the reservations might be able to provide stability in terms of food, basic needs. So there's just a lot of, I think, not sure where we're going to be situations. Sue said she's had a lot of contact from people calling to ask questions and looking for resources, which happens all the time. But obviously in this situation, it's going to really put more stress on the system and increase that need. So our biggest thing really is keeping in contact with our families to find out where they are and what their current situation is.
Thank you. Brandon, were you able to find that information on Spectrum?
Yes, so we have posted some information on our website. You go to the district website and click on the COVID-19 updates. And then once you get there, if you click on frequently asked questions, you'll get a document. And we put this up, I believe it was yesterday, and it will be a running document. We will be updating this daily. If you look under academics, we have some information on the Spectrum offer. So Spectrum's offering 60 days of free internet. There's a phone number on there. The household must be a household with a student enrolled in K through 12 school or college. It's for new customers only. Say if you were a previous customer and have past due balance, the balance has to be paid before receiving free internet. The family's address must be serviceable by Spectrum. They will provide everything needed to set up services free of charge. It says if the house has been previously outfitted for Spectrum, it can take anywhere from 1 to 5 days. And if the household has nothing at the moment, it'll take more closer to 7 to 10 days to get set up.
Thank you. And to reiterate, if somebody wants to find that information, they go to the school district's website, click on the COVID access, and under education, it has the information on the Spectrum website, for gaining free internet for 60 days with those restrictions.
Greta, I should point out that Sue's also watching this, and she just texted me and said our most common places where our homeless folks are living at this time is either doubled up, as I mentioned, apartments, trailers, motels, as I mentioned, and a lot of times they'll switch. There's a lot of switching of motels, and then also the shelters, of course.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Sue. You do a great job with these kids.
Any other ask? Our most frequently asked question is honestly is where can we get toilet paper?
And that's unfortunately a challenge. Any other questions? All right, Superintendent Upham, back to you.
Yeah, our final person and last but not least is Mark Wall, Activities and Safety. There have been some significant postponements that Mark will touch on. Mark?
Good evening. I first wanted to start by just thanking the print shop's staff and the warehouse staff for their support of the teachers. We met Tuesday morning, and as far as I know, the print shop staff has stayed at work each day until they fulfilled every order that the teachers have sent in, and then those orders are delivered by the warehouse staff to the schools. So they've done a great job, and I really appreciate the work they've put in. As you probably heard, we were at the state tournament this weekend, the state basketball tournament. We had completed all the semifinal games on Friday evening, and we were fortunate enough to have 2 teams qualify for the state championship game. The West High girls and the Skyview boys both qualified. Unfortunately, shortly after those games were completed, we got the news that we had to cancel. It was a difficult situation, but you would have been really proud of our kids and coaches. They handled themselves very well in a very difficult situation. I was really proud of them for that. It has been difficult for our student athletes or student activity participants. The MHSA met Monday morning and suspended all activities through April 13th. I was glad to hear the word suspended as opposed to canceled. I really hope that, as you know, these activities are important to these kids, and I hope we can offer something to them as we go through the remainder of this school year. The suspensions of activities include all practices inside, outside, or off campus. So the MHSA is monitoring that part of it. This ADs around the state are prepared to meet. As soon as we find out that the season will move on, we will meet to revise schedules, maybe revise tournament formats and that type of thing. Also included in those suspended activities are the music festivals. We were scheduled to host the district music festival here in Billings this week. Unfortunately, that didn't happen, but we met this morning, and we sent the MHSA a proposal to do some form of a festival if we are able to continue with activities. So hopefully they will approve that. We want to make sure those music kids get some type of competition in the remaining time. Lastly, I just want to talk quickly about driver's training. This past Tuesday, OPI approved distance learning for the classroom instruction part of driver's training. We didn't feel like we needed to do that. We like to keep our classroom instruction and our behind the wheel instruction together. Our teachers do a great job of tying those things together. But if we have school closures beyond the 30th, we'll struggle to get our session done. So we will be prepared to complete those classes through distance learning at that time. They did not suspend any of the behind the wheel instruction, so we will have to catch up with that whenever we get back to school. I think that's all I have. So are there any questions?
Are there any questions of Mark? Mark, you mentioned that the activities are suspended until April 13th. Do you know when MHSA is going to be reconvening to discuss the future of the activity season?
they will meet on that day and make a decision. And then we'll be given 5 days of practice. Normally the rule is 10, but we had already started and had a weekend. So they reduced the number of practices required from 10 to 5 days.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions?
Would the suspension of the activities include prom being rescheduled, or is that a goner?
I was not involved with that part of it. You'd probably have to ask Brenda and Dave about that. I believe all of those activities were suspended, but they can confirm that.
Dave or Brenda, do you have any information on prom?
Yeah, Madam Chair, Madam Chair, I spoke to two of the three principals regarding rescheduling. One of the difficult tasks they have is trying to find a facility that may be open at that time. They have not made a decision about rescheduling. It's all determined based on when we would return from return to school. But right now, they would like to find an opportunity, but it depends on venue and timing.
Thank you. Any other questions of Mark? Thanks, Mark. And back to Superintendent Upham.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Our final person is Katie Nordstrom, who is HR and working with our employee group. So Katie, a few comments, please.
Sure. Thank you, Superintendent Upham. My HR staff have been supporting employees regarding work expectations during this time, leave questions around sickness, navigating underlying health conditions, etc. Lots of really unique situations during this time. We've been working closely with the learning support team and the unions as we navigate this unique situation, as well as supporting building administrators as questions from staff arise. I've also been in contact with my AA counterparts as we help and support each other through this unique time. Our benefits manager has been, we still have end of year processes going. So she has shifted to working with our upcoming retirees remotely, helping them navigate TRS and PERS as we get near the end of the school year here. We also, on the benefits front, BPS signed an amendment with EBMS to allow a 90-day refill on prescription meds during this time frame, to ensure testing is paid at 100% with no deductible, and the elimination of pre-certifications to get diagnostic and medical care related to COVID-19. Our teams also worked with the MyCare team and we've closed the Lincoln Clinic and have expanded hours in the Heights at the Heights location. Their team is increasing awareness around the telemed option and phone consultations, as they are not equipped to handle the severe symptoms that go along with COVID-19, and they don't have the testing capability. They are, however, helping patients navigate the health systems. They're referring to Billings Clinic, St. Vincent Healthcare, and Riverstone Health, and then fielding kind of regular day-to-day medical questions from staff as they arise. And then we're just really making sure we're following federal and state law around overtime, FMLA, and working with the unions as we navigate this with CBA provisions. Does anyone have any questions?
Any questions of Katie? Thanks so much, Katie. Quite a juggling act that you're doing. We appreciate all of your hard work and the great yeoman effort of your staff. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Back to you, Greg.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Our final person of the night, Mr. Bo Brunsma, on the career piece. I know Dr. Oshesky touched on some of that, but just some of our students involved in their careers as it's becoming more and more populated, which is what we wanted. Build it and they will come. That's sure the case. So, Bo, anything to add to Dr. Oshesky's comments?
Thank you, Superintendent Upham. I just want to add kind of touch on a little bit what Chris said. We're really trying to help support teachers right now, especially in those CTE areas where it's really tough to figure out how you're going to put that online, how we're going to make packets. We're really trying to work with instructors that have reached out or in CTE areas where we know it's going to be tough to do that, and provide resources so that they can continue to touch some of the stuff that they're doing. Being really creative and out of the box with projects that they can have students do. And then just in general, as Chris mentioned, we have a spot on the offsite learning site for career and CTE. We're trying to add as many resources as well in areas of career exploration and awareness. So how can they be doing the assessments and career cruising that they maybe have done, and how can they interpret and go through some of those things? We're trying to continue some of the stuff we're doing with like resumes and interviews. Our career coaches were scheduled to go into classrooms and really help prep those for the career fair. Now, how do we take that stuff online and still be able to provide students as they're maybe making a transition or trying to figure out if they're going to go, seek employment. And they're just really trying to be or have a section on there where teachers can go in there, figure out what we've compiled and pulled out for them to do, and just add maybe a little bit more connection to maybe some of the core stuff that they're doing, and just trying to provide as many resources, I guess, as we can to help them as they try to put stuff online and provide packets for students.
Thanks, Bo. Are there questions of Bo? Thanks so much. Appreciate all of the work that you're doing. It's a challenging time, particularly trying to work with the CTE and on-site versus digital learning and all that component. So thank you very much. Appreciate it. Superintendent Upham.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to, that concludes the Executive Director's report. I just would ask, are there any follow-up questions that anyone has for any of the information that was shared before I go on?
I have a question. As we get, I know as people start to listen to this wealth of information that is being given by the very talented and committed executive directors, they're bound to have more questions. Where, if somebody wants to submit a question that they would like added to the frequently asked questions, where is the best site to do that?
I would suggest it's the board email. We are monitoring that. We will, I would say that would probably be the best venue.
Thank you. Did anyone have any additional questions before Superintendent Upham carries on?
I'm assuming that that we're going to talk about more. Talk about what Governor Bullock said, and maybe just address the questions that are on all the parents' minds about the future, what we expect.
Trustee Hall, that is correct. If you look in the agenda, you'll see we're going to touch on item 3, which is Governor Bullock's directive issued today. I want to recap our timeline, though, because I think it's important. We looked at these 3 tiers. I established 3 tiers of time, and that is tier 1 was to address the first couple of weeks, and then, which we're in now, and then tier 2 is out 1 month, and tier 3 is out to the end of school. In looking and seeing what's happening, I don't know anything, but I would prepare us to at least be out a month. It looks like that's the way things are unfolding. I'm hoping that we aren't, but if we are planning for that. And what does that look like? Well, that'll look like, intensified services and supports my biggest concern probably in the teaching and learning is the math support that's going to be needed moving forward. And so that'll be the next discussion. How do we get instructional supports to all students, specifically in math areas and those types of areas where there's intense focus for students needing individual help, if you will. So we don't have answers to that yet, but I just in seeing what's happening across the country, it looks to me like we possibly could be out at least a month.
Any other questions? Did you have anything else to add before we move on to the next agenda item?
I don't, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. So the next agenda item is COVID-19 available resources. And we talked about a few of these during the last emergency meeting, but I wanted to have them captured again for folks that can take a look at the agenda. The Billings Public School website actually provides a wealth of information, and that's at www.billingsschools.org. If you go there, you'll see that there are SU2 COVID-19 updates. Another way to get information is to sign up for the superintendent's newsletter, and there's a link provided where you can become a member of the newsletter subscription. There's also the School District 2 Facebook page. As we mentioned a couple nights ago, the Office of Public Instruction, or OPI, does have specific information pertaining to COVID-19 on their website. And if you would simply go to opi.mt.gov, that would take you to that site. The educational coalition called MTPEC has a website as well that has a specific link to COVID-19, and that's mt-pec.org. Again, that information is available on the agenda. If you go to the OPI website, there are an array of links to other resources. The governor's COVID-19 task force has a link on there, as well as the Department of Health and Human Services, DPHHS, has a COVID-19 update. Superintendent Upham is also giving updates. Is it every night on Q2?
As of now, I have been invited to give updates daily to the Q2 News, and I would think that will continue as long as we are in this situation.
So that would be another resource that would be available for our community at large. So does anybody have any other resources that they would like to identify? Okay, if not, I'll move on to the next agenda item.
Greta, just Mr. Felton said that they have updates on Riverstone Health also.
Okay, thank you very much, Jan. I appreciate that. Governor Bullock had a directive that he issued earlier today. He issued a directive implementing executive orders 2-20 and 3-20 and providing additional direction related to school closures. The directive is attached for review and comment, and I asked Jeff Weldon, our attorney, and Greg to discuss this latest directive with us.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I had discussions with our legal counsel, and I want to say that they have been outstanding as a team. We are very fortunate to have that level of experience assisting and guiding us, especially as I had shared in my newsletter referencing the blood drive that we're partnering with, that there is not a recipe nor a playbook for this. And so we are leaning heavily on them as far as, next steps. I also want to, and I didn't mention it early, but I do want to recognize and mention the quality support that our union presidents have had in this piece. Rachel Showorth, the BEA president, and Megan Simons with our assistants, and Tim Schroff with our custodians and maintenance people. They have been absolutely outstanding, and I can't thank them enough for their support in this too. So thank you. As far as the governor's directive, quite a bit of chatter earlier in the week on, I think, just some question marks about funding and were we going to have to make the time up. I think it's safe to say, and I'll have Mr. Weldon speak after me and reinforce or correct if I'm mistaken in any ways, that we will not have to make up any of these 10 days. That was the reason that we called the special board meeting, the unforeseen emergency, to protect us against makeup time. But in his directive dated as of today, we will not be required to make up that time. And also all funding sources will flow with that. So I think everyone's breathing a sigh of relief, at least for these next 10 days. There is additional information in the directive. So I do want to say that we do not have to make the days up, the 10 days, and all funding sources will flow. So that will help people relax. However, if we do go further, the governor is making a statement that there are going to be 4 areas that are going to be measured by the local trustees as far as the quality of a program being brought forward. And the 4 areas are quality public education through remote learning. Number 2 is school meals. Number 3 is services to students with disabilities. And number 4 are other services customarily provided to students in school in the event there are school closures beyond March 27th. As I stated earlier, I'm not an alarmist, nor am I panicked at all, but I do believe that there's a strong potential that we will go further of the outage. So I will meet with our team, and we will develop that program, which is exactly what you just heard. We will provide and are providing quality education. We are providing school meals. We are providing to our students with disabilities, and we are providing other services that we would normally have in place. So I have no concerns about that at all. If in the case that districts do not meet those requirements with their trustees, there's other alternatives that can happen. But right now, I do not have any concerns. I am more than proud of the work that's going on right now. And I think it's a testament to the people that were just speaking about what's happened, not to mention the obvious. Our people in the field, our teachers have just been outstanding, and our support personnel the same. So questions on that?
Are there any questions of Greg on the directive as he has shared with us? Jeff, are you going to add to that?
I can a little bit. The board has a copy of the governor's directive that was just issued this afternoon. And I guess the point that I want to make is that in addition to trying to figure out how to run a school for the 16,000, 17,000 students you have, the superintendent has been trying to figure out how to comply with state and federal laws and the interpretation of those laws and the modification of those. And I need to mention, Brenda asked earlier if a trustee had considered putting his student into detention. It occurred to me, I'm not sure how we'll respond when we get a call from a parent asking how to expel a student. So that'll be interesting. So what we have now, and just as a kind of a reminder of the time frame, as Greg mentioned earlier, it was just a week ago that the governor declared this emergency. By Sunday, we had the governor declaring that schools would be closed. There was a lot of chatter, or the collective group trying to figure out all these moving pieces. What does it mean? What does it mean for financing? What does it mean for your students? What does it mean for your students at risk? And what does it mean for employment? And so lots of discussions, lots of ideas. Luckily, then we have the governor coming out this afternoon with this directive, which shows that using his emergency powers under the Constitution of Montana and the laws, he's not going to require the schools in Montana to make up the hours that we're going to miss over these 2 weeks. But we're supposed to use this time to plan for additional closures if that's necessary. And he's given us some direction on things that we need to do. As Greg mentioned, there's 4 areas that we will be required to report and plan for: remote learning, school meals, serving kids with disabilities, and then something called other services customarily provided to students. And then that, as time goes on, will be reported back to the board for review and approval. And that'll be the condition then that will be required before schools can receive funding. You know, I think we've all figured out that none of us know how long this is going to last, exactly how it's going to unfold. So there will be changes. I would fully expect that there may be legislative changes coming both on the federal and the state level to try to figure out how to cover this time. But as Greg mentioned, those 4 areas that the board will have to judge, I think tonight you saw in the staffing reports remarkable progress. I mean, this has been 4 days, and in 4 days, a school district completely shifting the way that it provides services, everything from food to special education to regular education to transportation, all those sorts of things. It's remarkable. So that's what we have right now. It does not appear that we're going to lose any funding for these 2 weeks. I think we need to stay tuned and remain flexible as we go forward. The other thing I want to mention is one of the things I've been monitoring, of course, is how this school board operates in this environment, but still providing public participation and public access to how you govern yourself. That's very important. This school district, frankly, has had problems in the past, including a lot of litigation over open meeting law violations. So we had to kind of fine tune and retune how we provide that. And from what I can tell, really this school district is kind of providing a model on how a virtual meeting should occur. You've given plenty of notice. You've given notice on when the next time you'll meet, which is next Monday, plus then the opportunity for public to offer comment in the form of questions. And as we've clarified before, comments are coming in as questions and also then expression of opinion. We're going to try to get answers out through Greg's staff on the website. So I think to the public at large, one is the district is trying mightily to try to figure out how to keep everybody informed. And then the website is a great resource for this information. And I think you witnessed tonight that all these educational professionals really have one thing in mind, which is trying to figure out what's in the best interest of these kids and keep the school district going. So if there's any questions about the declaration, you all can read it. I'm not sure I have any further interpretation of it, but we'll go forward.
Are there any questions of Jeff?
Yeah, I've got a question, and I think it's an easy answer, but if you could just speak to it. This is at the bottom of page 1. In the event there are closures beyond March 27th, it says that we won't need to reschedule that in-person time lost if the Board of Trustees approves what the district's doing. That's how I read that. Is that accurate?
Right, Russ, that's how I read it as well. If we are closed beyond the 27th, it'll be pursuant to a governor's direction or executive order. And then we won't be required to reschedule in person during that time, provided we do the things which the governor outlined, which is we have a plan to address those 4 huge areas. But, I mean, what we heard tonight was exactly what I would guess the governor is expecting us to do. So, thumbs up to Greg and his staff. I'm just overwhelmed.
Thank you. Any other questions of Jeff? All right, thanks, Jeff. Appreciate your legal services. So the last item on the list is, as Jeff was commenting a little bit about, is communication from the public. And we've made a slight modification in our communication to the public statement to tailor it to a virtual meeting. So I'd just like to share that with you. The board, again, some of this is similar to our regular meetings. The board recognizes the value of public comment on educational issues and the importance of listening to members of the public in its meetings. The board also recognizes the statutory and constitutional right of the public to participate in governmental operations. The board encourages members of the public to participate in and express opinions about issues important to the district. This part of the board's meeting is dedicated to public comment on any public matter that is not on the agenda of this meeting and is within the jurisdiction of the Board of Trustees. Members of the public may also address particular items of this agenda during this time. Please note that pursuant to board policy, the chair may direct public commentary to ensure an orderly progression of the meeting. This direction may include setting a time limit for public commentary on any particular item. The chair may also interrupt or terminate an individual statement when necessary, including when statements are out of order, too lengthy, personally directed, abusive, obscene, or irrelevant. The board as a whole shall have the final decision in determining the appropriateness of such a ruling by the chair. And then this following paragraph is a major modification. Public comment on this evening's virtual meeting can be submitted in electronic format using the Google document link provided on the district's website. When accessing the district's homepage or school board page, a pop-up window will appear with a link to the Google document. Submissions require a full name and home address in order to be submitted for the record and are limited to 500 word count. Submissions will be screened and read verbally by the district clerk prior to the conclusion of the meeting. That concludes the narrative on communication from the public. But I'd also like to say that the board does welcome comments in this meeting, but please understand it's an opportunity to express opinions. The board understands that many who submit public comment do so wanting to get information back from the board of the district, and the board and administration will not respond to the questions that you submit in public comment during the meeting. We understand it may be frustrating or confusing, and we don't want you to think that we're ignoring your questions, especially in this confusing time. Please continue to go to our website. The superintendent will continue to provide information, including answers to many of the questions submitted during board meetings, and there are a number of answers to questions under frequently asked questions. So with that, Craig Van Nuys, do we have any public comment this evening?
Madam Chair, there are no public comments this evening.
Oh, well. And we'll move on to the last item. And we, again, will not be adjourning this meeting. And because of the effects and impacts of COVID-19, it's quickly evolving. And it has become the recommendation of our attorneys to continue this meeting and not to adjourn, but to recess until Monday, March 23rd at 5:30, when we will reconvene with another virtual meeting. So with that, I will say thank you for the wealth of information that has been shared with the board, has been shared with our community this evening. You have stepped up, and it's heartwarming to hear from each and every one of you that the work that you're doing, and it's evident that you are putting kids at the center of your minds and of your hearts as we move forward. So thank you very much, and we will see you on Monday evening. Good evening.